Okay, I think we can get started. I'm really excited to have Eric Kripke here, creator and showrunner and executive producer of The Boys. And before we get into the bigger question of the episode that we just watched, how did you get Charlize Theron?
Hey everybody. Under like the rigorous procedure of whoever returns Seth Rogen's phone calls. So we had like a long list of we needed a big movie star for that, and they had just made Seth Rogen as an executive producer of the show. I'm name dropping, so you know, and they had just made The Long Shot together.
Oh, right.
So she was cool with it, and we shot her side in L.A. And I think she thought she was doing like a 45-minute favor for him, and then showed up for like a full day of filming. So, but she was a really good sport.
Well, I was like shocked. I'm like, is that? Yes, it is. That's so funny. I realize, you guys, I really apologize. I didn't give, I mean, so a lot of people have seen The Boys, but I didn't like explain what The Boys was about. I just sort of threw you in there. But now we have the creator, and you mentioned something outside when we were talking about like all the dead people. Well, how would you describe what The Boys is about, and what you were talking about? Like, this is what I always imagined life would be like with superheroes.
Yeah, I mean, it's about a couple of things. It's I'd say on its surface level, it is specifically about what would happen if superheroes actually existed in our world for real. I mean, that was always the hook, and it would be awful. It would be like the worst idea ever, because it'd be really violent, and you would have the Flash running through people, and you would have Superman becoming sociopathic. It's just all sort of human psychology. But then, you know, if you ask me really what it's about, I would say it's a satire on capitalism, and how everything is sort of turned into commodities and products, and how stocks and stock price is the thing that drives just a huge amount of human misery.
And the way the characters are sort of managed, almost like the old studio system managed actors. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. So then the other big question we have, I have, about the episode that we just saw. So how the hell did you come up with that idea of, like, you know what I'm talking about, of the exploding penis? I mean, of like the
right.
Where do you like sit around and go, what is the weirdest, like craziest thing we could think of? Or
I swear that we don't. We actually try to come at it from a very logical, you know, even character.
Run me through that logic.
Okay, sure. It started with the minute we decide to do an Ant-Man, it becomes an inevitable train, basically. So we said, let's do a hero that we haven't done yet before, and someone said we should do Ant-Man. And then we said, okay, well, if you were Ant-Man and you really wanted to, you know, F somebody up, what would you do? And then someone said you would go up Thanos' butt and you would explode him. And that was a big meme that was going around at the time. And so it's sort of our job on the show to do the most logical thing that a superhero would do that Marvel and DC would never, ever show you. And so for days it was, well, he goes up this guy's butt and then explodes him in a drug fueled sex accident. But then someone pointed out, and anyone who's seen the show, someone pointed out, they said, you know, in season 1, we blew up another superhero through his butt, and which was translucent. He had a bomb placed up his for a whole other reason, and so
had been done.
We kind of already did it. So once you take the butt off the table, there's only so many orifices you can choose, and it became a pretty logical. The only thing I'll add is we built that penis practically at great expense to Amazon, and it's one of my like happier.
Oh, that's
moments.
a real thing.
Excuse the bad pun, but it got like skinned over with CG. But that is an 11-foot high, 20-foot long penis for real, that the actor like jumped up and crawled into,
Went in.
and
And so-
the urethra is really inside it, and it's a real tunnel, and it was a whole set.
Little tunnel like squishy,
Yeah,
or is it
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
so like that exists somewhere
That was
in this universe right now?
I mean, not anymore. It was destroyed, sadly, because they didn't have stage space for it. I thought about asking my wife if it could go in my backyard, but I never went through with it.
Kids can play.
Yeah, I know. It's
outside.
like if there's ever like if there's ever a Vought land, like that is a no-brainer.
Oh my God.
Or a ride.
That is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
I also I noticed the Amazon call out when he ordered
I know.
I've never noticed that before in the show. Is that like something?
No, I feel like ever so slightly dirty about it. It's just that's what someone would do if they were ordering a
Right.
game.
So that's not something that came down.
No.
Please have
No, if anything, they know that whenever they pitch me something, I'll find a way to satirize it in the show. But I still feel dirty about it, but it is the
was
most
very funny actually.
it's the most realistic. Like it's the most realistic. But I agonized over that one a little bit actually.
I didn't catch it the first time around. I just caught it when I watched it on this, and I went, "Oh, that's interesting." Okay, so let's back up a little bit, and can you like sort of walk us through how the boys came into being and how you came to the project and yeah.
Yeah, it's based on a comic by a guy named Garth Ennis, who also wrote the comic book Preacher and a bunch of others. He's pretty awesome and amazing. And I was just a fan of both Preacher and the boys, and then they were making Preacher. You know, it was a series on AMC for a while, and I happened to know the one of the producers. And I was a really big fan of Preacher, so I went in to see him, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to say F you for giving Preacher to somebody else because I'm a huge fan, and you really screwed up." And he said, "Well, we have the boys. Do you want that?" I said, "Oh yeah, totally. I'll take that." And then Seth Rogen and his partner Evan were sort of circling it because they were the producers on Preacher and had a relationship with everybody, and they were kind of circling it too. So we all just kind of jumped in at the same time. And then you have to take out a pitch. You take a pitch around town. We actually sold it to Cinemax. I wrote the pilot for Cinemax, which took about a year and a half.
At what stage, let me just ask you, at what stage in the Marvel takeover of everything was this happening?
There would have been, when you think about how long ago and how long it takes to get something off the ground, I think we pitched it in 2015. So I think Deadpool had just come out, but not Deadpool 2. And there might have been one Avenger movie, but enough to know that it was this giant wave that showed no signs of slowing down.
Because I think, for so many people, the appeal is sort of it's the antidote to the Marvel universe.
Right. Like everyone who's, sick to death of it. I mean, when we pitched it, we said, someone's going to do this.
Right.
There's just the balloon is inflated too big for someone to not try to pop it. And so it should be us and to all the various studios we were pitching to. Like, it should be you. You should jump on this because if you don't, someone else will.
Right. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So
we wrote it for Cinemax, and then for all these factors that why it's so hard to make anything, Cinemax decided in the middle that they were not going to make big budget shows. And so we had written a pilot just to have it released by Cinemax, but it was good of them to cut it loose at least. But at that same time, Amazon was just trying to get some genre stuff going. Like they were circling Lord of the Rings and they wanted other stuff fast. And we had a finished script and we had a finished Bible. So they just kind of, it's funny, I would say less than 2 weeks after Cinemax let it go, Amazon just kind of jumped on it, and then we put a room together and started writing.
And so were they? I mean, because it's a big swing for Amazon. I mean,
Yeah.
it is like it's an out there kind of thing, and it was. I mean, it was wildly embraced by everyone, but it could have been like off-putting. Like this is too much. Did you get any kind of
Yeah, no,
executives? Were they like
yeah. I mean,
everybody up?
I mean, any first season show, there's just an incredible amount of hand wringing and second guessing, and it was not me; it was another showrunner who said it. But I think it's really right, which is so much of your job in that first season is to like slap their hand away from the cookie jar. Because they say, I want it to be this. And you go, you can't have that. That doesn't make sense. And so you really have to fight hard for your idea. Know when to compromise, pick and choose your battles, but also know when to say, that's just not, a version of the show I understand. For the record, I quit 3 times the first year of the show. Yeah.
Because of that?
Yeah. I just was like, well, you clearly don't want the show that I'm going to make, so I'm going to go home now.
And what was the problem? I mean, was there a problem, or was it just
some of it was casting, without getting into too many details of the choices that I wanted. One of them was they didn't want. So in the very first episode, Starlight, is a victim of sexual assault, and it was an element from the comic, but like the Me Too movement was happening in real time, and I said I had really smart and dynamic women on my staff and were producers, and they were so passionate that story be told, and certain executives at Amazon, again, without going into too much detail, like they wanted to kill it. They thought it was too edgy or controversial or something.
It's controversial. That's scary.
And right, exactly. And I said, well, then if you don't want to touch those types of subject matters, then that's definitely not the show I want to make. And then the thing is, like, you just go, and I'm going home, and then you hang up, and then you go home, and then you wait for them to call you, and you're like, okay, and then and then they call
obviously
you. Yeah, the trick of like when you quit, you can't bluff. That's all I'll say.
You have to
like never bluff your quit. Just really quit, and then if they call you back, they call you back.
3 times. That's
3 times.
Is that a record?
No. The famous one is how often Damon Lindelof quit during the first season of Lost. I think it was like 5 or 6, and he wrote like resignation letters, and he would take off for days into the desert. It's famous how often Damon quit the first season of Lost.
It's hilarious. And I was just reading somewhere that the actor who plays Starlight has been getting trolled from this season.
Yeah. So it's people online are the fucking worst. So what happened is, so she has, and she would be totally comfortable with me saying this. This isn't like a secret or anything. She's very open about it. But she's had like some like thyroid illness that she's trying to regulate out her medication. And because of it, she lost a certain amount of weight for season 3 because she was trying to get healthy, and the amount of people that were online being like, everything from she's ugly now to she has an eating disorder to just because there's something about the anonymity of social media that just lets people be cruel at a level that I don't think they, without worrying about, like, that's a real person on the other side.
Right. And I would imagine too, though, I mean, social media has been very helpful in sort of establishing this dominance of the genre in television. So I'd imagine there's a pretty big fan base too.
Yeah.
So it's like, the scrutiny.
No, look, obviously it's
characters compared to the comic books and compared to, have you faced that as well? Like sort of those.
Oh, for sure.
Deviate from whatever the.
Yeah, and look, my other show was Supernatural, which arguably has the first one of the first and one of the biggest and certainly one of the craziest online fandoms. So it's like I do have a lot of experience with how to surf it in a way that how not to let it get to you, and how to take the good and sort of shuttle aside the stuff that's not so good. But so like I don't care if they want to talk shit about the show. I actually have no problem if they want to talk shit about the character.
Right.
It's not even a problem if they want to talk shit in the specificity of what Aaron was going through. Like, even if you want to say, like, I don't like that performance. Mm-hmm. I don't like the job you were doing. Like, all that's fair play. What's not fair play is
you're too skinny.
You're too skinny, or you look ugly to me, or like you would never talk like that in real life.
Right.
And that's a real person listening to that. So
very impressed with your response.
Oh, I told them to eat a bag of dicks.
It was heartfelt.
Yeah.
I hope it silenced them.
It didn't, but thank you.
So, can you talk about, one of the things that I really like, it takes on the superhero myth, but it also takes on, you talk about capitalism, it takes on politics. All last season was about like sort of how insidious fascism can be, and the racist attitude, the idea of a super race, and like so much of that, the subtext felt very, much commentary on some of our current the MAGA right. It's like so can you talk about that? Is that intentional? I'm not familiar with the book that it's based on. But how much of that did you intend to be like social commentary?
A lot of it, and it's all totally intentional. The book, the book was written in 2005 and 2006 is when it started. So it is a very satirical book, but it's very much about like the Bush administration and the Gulf War, and it has its own sort of targets. But political satire is baked into it. But I think in a way that's good for the show and awful for the world, it was a little ahead of its time in predicting in 2006, 2007, that the most insidious fascists and authoritarianisms were going to present as celebrities. And the show is, if nothing else, it's about, just because naturally that's what a superhero is. It's this intersection of someone who's very, very famous and a sometimes brutal authority figure, and that. Look, I came into it being like it'll be fun to take the piss out of superheroes and make fun of capitalism. It turned out to be this metaphor, and all good science fiction is a metaphor of something. And it was this perfect metaphor for the exact second we were living in, about how, you can make something more and more fascist and backslide away from democracy, and people will cheer because it's entertainment. And that superheroes define that sort of perfectly. So once that locked into place, fairly early in season 1, we said, okay, well, we just have to push that ball as far as we can, because in our own weird way, we're one of there's not that many shows that are really talking about now. And so we really felt like this will be really special, especially for a superhero show. So we have to push it. And I'm not going to lie, like I come into the writer's room, we all do, often angry and feeling helpless and scared about a lot of the things that are happening in the world. And so, we can't fix it, but at least it's therapeutic to be able to write about it.
Were you tempted at all to deal with the pandemic? I know you're working season 4.
It's crazy to say, but it felt too big and broad for us. So we just sort of ignored it. But yeah, like MAGA, and we're in the middle of, we just started shooting season 4, and season 4 it is a lot about Q. So we keep everything keeps evolving, and we keep sort of adjusting the metaphor to have it fit. Of season 4 is about all of these like batshit conspiracy theories that are just tearing society apart. Good for you. Congrats, everybody. It's all gonna be great.
Well, I mean, the elasticity of superhero drama is pretty astonishing, the way that it's used. But before I open it up, I just want to ask you about the violence. I mean, it is like sort of, I mean, there's a cheekiness to the violence, but it's also can be quite startling and quite horrifying. And can you talk a little bit about how you sort of work in that genre? I mean, I feel like it's a paint box for you. And how do you like?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated because on one hand, a lot of it for us comes from that mantra of, okay, if this really happened, if the Flash really ran through someone, we always use the example of, all the times that Superman like eye lasers people, it would not look like that. It would look like the way we do it. So part of it is about that idea of depicting something very real as much as we can. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, a lot of it's really, shocking. And part of it is, my background is horror, so I'm really comfortable playing with that. Two, it's so fun to produce and make. And I'd be lying if I said that didn't factor in. It's the closest you'll ever get to like playing with puppets. This is so fun, and everyone on set, whenever you're making something that's horrible, everyone on set's laughing, and it's like playing, and it's honestly, it's like some of my best memories are, some stupid puppet that got rigged with blood, and it's just so funny. So I will admit that's part of it, and but we try really hard. Weirdly, I know this will sound crazy, but we work really hard and agonize a lot about whether we think something's going to be gratuitous. Like we want to be shocking, but we don't want to be shocking for shocking's sake. We want to make a brutal point. We want to shake someone out of complacency, out of something that's happening in the world. But we really don't want to be exploitive, and we try hard. Despite exploding penises, we try really hard to not just, because even that insane scene has a point, and it's about Butcher being pulled back from the brink. Like we try all these things of like, well, does it advance the story? Is it honest to character? We try to underpin it as much as we can so it just doesn't come off like a B movie, exploitation.
Well, the scene in the alley when the guy's face, that was really that was much more shocking than the guy blowing up, because the guy blew up, but in that scene that person was still alive, and that was what was really kind of
right,
and the camera stayed on his face for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it was all CG and beautifully done.
You
didn't think we really blew up a guy's face? Oh, and then I failed a little bit. No, it was meant to. At the time, we were like, we wanted to present that particular character, Victoria, who is supposed to be really slick and Huey's best friend and a politician, of just really taking off her mask and showing how absolutely brutal and dangerous she was. So again, there's thought put into it.
No, that makes sense. But I was just like, earlier on, I was saying to the class that it's very violent, but you don't really see people suffer. It's like a violence that's very like right. A balloon exploding. But in that one, I'm a liar. There he is.
Yeah, that was pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open up to the class. I'm sure they have tons of questions. Do we want to pass around the microphones? Do you need mine? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. My name's Jake. I'm a big fan of the comic, but in it, the kind of a lot of the heroes are a little bit one dimensional. Like A-Train and is just kind of blatantly just an a-hole in the comics, and the Deep doesn't even have any lines. So I was wondering about the decision to kind of humanize the Seven in the way that you did in the show.
Good question, Jake. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, part of it is again, we started with, okay, what's the most real version of any of this? And so, for example, if you were like the fish guy, you would be super insecure because you have a totally ridiculous power. And so he sort of became like our Brad Pitt kind of pretty boy actor who wanted to be taken seriously. And it helps define why he does such horrible things. And then A-Train, if you were the world's fastest person and your power was performance-based, you're only a big superhero as long as you can race faster than anyone else. Then that became a pretty clean line into a professional athlete story and a steroid story, So part of it is just taking that down. And then I don't know how to write bad guys. Period. I don't know how to write bad guys. Anytime anyone does something evil in a script, I'm always like, but why? And what made them do that? And why did they make that choice? No one looks in the mirror and says, I'm evil. Everyone looks in the mirror and says, I'm going to save the world. So how does that get twisted, and how do they get... So I only understand how to write, villains who, in their own head, make sense of what they're doing. So that was why. It's just part of it is it's just a writing taste.
Hi, my name's Matt. Thank you again for coming. I had a question about... I'm forgetting. How did you feel about releasing a superhero-based show that was not a part of either DC or Marvel? It
was for sure a risk, but I think we felt, I think we felt good about it, confident, just because we knew we were going to go so hard in the other direction and take the piss out of it and really be a satire of those worlds, So we felt we had a good shot if people were feeling a little fed up with it like we were. We were hopeful that they would respond the way we wanted them to.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Laura. I had two questions. My first one was, while you were creating this, did you have any particular audience in mind? And the second thing is, how do you balance the action with the humor, since there's a lot of both?
Good questions. The audience, no, I mean, part of these things become, because the show is pretty expensive, you have to try to appeal to as many people as possible. So whereas the comic, I think, is very male-centered, and we were really interested in opening it up. So, like, we really strengthened Starlight, for example. There's several characters in the comic who were men that we gender flipped to women, because we really wanted to open it up to, everybody. Every adult. Hopefully, we don't want kids too young to watch it. And then, how do you balance it? Between the humor and the action and the horror and everything. I'm a big believer in, I don't know how many writers are in the room, but it really is character above all else. And if I always just kind of let the characters be the guide. If we're breaking a story, we'll spend, it takes about 3 weeks to break a story. We'll spend 2+ weeks just talking about the characters, and then in the last 4 days, put the entire plot together. And so if the character wants to take you to something funny or scary or gross based on what their psychology is, but it's always grounded into what they're feeling as a person, the audience tends to go with them. It's when stuff feels jammed in and it's not meant to be there that I think the balance gets off. But I think the balance finds itself when you're just telling an emotional story about a person that people can relate to. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Mia. Thank you so much for being here. I've been a fan for the show since the first season, and something that's always amazed me is that it feels like the social commentary is like wonderfully obvious to those watching. So something that surprised me, especially with season 3, is that it's been embraced by the people that it seems that you are making fun of, and I was wondering if that surprised you, because it's so I don't know.
Yeah, no, it did surprise me. Yeah, so what she's referencing is there have been more than one MAGA convention or rally where like the people there are unironically dressing as Homelander, and acting like that's somehow, like one of them's got like a guy who's dressed as Joe Biden and he's like dragging him to jail and whatever. And yeah, I don't know what to say about it, because the show, I totally agree with you. The show is a lot of things, but subtle is not one of them. We very specifically and intentionally sort of paint with a wrecking ball, because I think it wants to be urgent the way that I think the world feels urgent. So why people can watch that and feel like it's all right to look at Homelander as a hero is amazing to me. He's so obviously a sociopath.
Hi, I'm Jared. Thank you for coming. So, as we know, with like other franchises like Marvel and DC, like comic book fans are pretty like loyal and pretty obsessed. And you've mentioned that you've taken some creative liberties. How did you balance staying authentic to the original comic, but also allowing yourself to be creative? And like, were you scared that certain aspects that you changed would receive backlash? Or
Yeah, adapting stuff is the worst. I walked into it feeling like this will be great. Someone else came up with all the hard work and the ideas, but it's way harder than writing original stuff. I liken it to, it's like playing the world's most stressful game of Jenga, because you have to like pull these pieces and hope that it's going to work and hope the whole thing doesn't fall over. But at the end of the day, and Garth Ennis is still involved. Like he reads all the scripts and he gives me notes, and where I landed was I just tried to get the characters and the tone right. You know, like have them be recognizable to people who had read the books, and the tone is recognizable to a certain extent. But you can't do a one-to-one adaptation. It wouldn't work, and every time someone tries, that show always inevitably sucks, because they're trying too hard and it's too suffocating. You know, one way to put it, and this is a little heady, but comics work in space, space on a page. Film works in time, beats, timing, and so you actually can't do it efficiently, or you can't do it accurately. So the way I always put it is it's its own animal with the same heart. And I just aim for that. And when people say like, it's not the comic and F you, I always say like, yeah, no, go read, you're right. And go read the comic. The comic's great. But this is a different thing. This is my interpretation of the comic as a TV show. So it's like, I don't know why people can't accept things as different, different animals. So you kind of just do the best you can.
Thank you for coming. In regards to that scene, about halfway through, there's a point where the main character comes into a set and someone's playing his role, and they have a conversation which I find funny, but he references Shia LaBeouf and his Ghost Rider. Could you talk more about that?
There isn't much to say. I mean, we like to be kind of like inside Hollywood, and it's just funny to me that in that world, Shia LaBeouf wrote a book, but not really, and had a ghostwriter write it for him. And just like all that like inside baseball Hollywood stuff is just really, I think, entertaining. That's all. I was just going for a joke, really.
Hello, my name is Anne. Thank you very much for coming. My question is basically just a very general question. So I just want to ask, like, whenever at the times where you felt like you want to quit or like you want to give up, what is like something that you have in mind that supports you to keep on going?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, for me, it was having no other marketable skills. Like I sort of had no choice to keep at this because there was nothing else I was at all even remotely good at. So that's the thing. Look, the thing is the thing I'll say about that is, I went to this school. I was among you guys at one point. There was a bunch of us. In general, with very few exceptions, persistence was the deciding factor. Because everyone's talented and everyone's smart, but it's the people who are willing to really put in the years that it takes without giving up, and so it's kind of important to you just kind of have to get up. You have to show up and get there every day. One thing that I wish I was told when I was in your seat was to not quit looking at failure as negative. Failure is the most important factor in success. Nobody gets it right first. So every failure is an opportunity to be a little bit better and keep building off it. And I wish they would teach that. I wish they would teach that, like, drafts and drafts of scripts is not a weakness, that's a strength. Notes and notes and notes. Those are all such positive things. It gets better. I'm at the point now where when an episode finally gets turned in, I'm like, shit, I guess we couldn't make it any better. And so you have to stop looking at it as a thing you're afraid of. Failure is something you should be diving into with both feet.
Hi. Oh, is it on? Yes. Hi. Hi. I just want to say thank you for coming. I haven't seen the boys until today, but I'm not.
So sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I like it. It was really neat. I'm not shy enough to not admit that I was not only a big fan of Supernatural, but was a fan of it like in high school. So long after it was popular. But I just wanted to ask you if what you, since you are an SCA, you're a SCA alum, I wanted to ask you how did you go from USC to Supernatural, and then what from Supernatural, or what do you look for in a project so that you got so that you wanted to work on The Boys, if that makes sense?
Oh, super long story of USC to Supernatural, but a lot of unemployment, a lot of failure. I graduated USC thinking I wanted to be a comedy writer, and it turns out like I really sucked at it. So I had to kind of adjust on the fly, and I became a horror writer, which took me to Supernatural, which was an idea I had when I was here. And I tried to get people to listen to me for it for about 8 years, and no one would ever listen until finally somebody did. And then after Supernatural, I did a couple shows in between. But the thing I love about The Boys and why is just it does all the things that I want, that I like in my taste. Its sense of humor is my sense of humor. Its political commentary is sort of where I stand on things. It gets to be gory and funny and gross and poignant, emotional, really emotional. So I'm just having a blast. I'm just having a blast doing that.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. My name is Lily.
Hey.
As you said, this show is a critique on capitalism, and I know that it already has one spin-off and that there's another spin-off in the works. So I wanted to ask how you feel about that kind of being a dichotomous relationship, and also how you plan to keep this franchise a separate entity from more capitalistic studios like.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
It's a serious concern, and like, one is you have to be really aware of the irony of, like, in season 4 we have scenes where we're taking the piss out of the spinoff, and we're like, Jesus Christ, what a money grab! Are you serious? And part of it is you have to lean into it, but for what it's worth, and I know, but for what it's worth, the show, the spinoff that kind of came out of just conversations, it didn't come from Amazon saying, hey, we want a spinoff because we want more global domination. It came from us being like, that's a really funny corner of the world. It's a college show, actually. It's about a college in Vought for superheroes. And we were like, oh, that's really funny, and it'd be cool to do that show, but with our tone. And so we brought it to them, and the other spinoff that we're maybe thinking about also is internally developed. We just think that it's cool work. It's a whole universe, and we think there's cool corners of it that we can see. But are we selling out? Maybe. I mean, and it worries me. It really does, because the brand is thumbing its nose at all that, and so it's a risky proposition. So we'll time will tell. It's a good question.
Hi, my name's Danny. I absolutely love this show, and before I get to my question, I just want to compliment you and whoever wrote and directed the episode. In season 2, Victoria Newman in the courtroom. Rewatching that sequence is genius.
Thanks.
And my question is just, I just recently started reading the comic, and seeing a lot of the differences I noticed the most were kind of like, you chose to tackle certain things later in the show. Like Temp V is brought up in the first couple issues. They're already in the location they're in season 3. They're there at the beginning. How do you decide kind of when to reorganize things?
The biggest difference, and what motivated a lot of how things got mixed up, is the comic itself is pretty episodic. They're on a story for 2 or 3 issues, and then they move on to the next one. It actually would be a really good, like, rated X CBS show, to do it. But the business model of streaming is it has to be a serialized story. Like, they demand it. They don't come in and say, what are you thinking? They say, so what's your pitch on a serialized version of this? So just because, by that very nature, it has to be a totally new story. So you have to choose different pieces of it. And I also think that there's something about television that novels and graphic novels don't have to do. You sort of have to tease people into it, and believe it or not, I was pitching the beginning of the show. I said, instead of throwing everyone into it the way the comic does, like, we should have more of a Wizard of Oz structure, where you start with Huey and he's Dorothy, and then he meets the Tin Man, who's Butcher, and then each episode he's going to keep meeting people in the party before they form the whole group, and you can really spend time with each one. And that allows you to then open up the world. We were just talking about Lord of the Rings of Power. I think my problem with Rings of Power is it doesn't, anyone who's watching that show, it doesn't do that. It just throws you so deep in that you're struggling to really emotionally connect. And I think there's value in, assembling the team. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Marguerite, and thank you so much for coming. I just wanted to ask, you were talking about how the first thing you do when writing is, like, creating the characters, and I just wanted to know, like, what the process was like of doing that and creating like the depth and like the psychology behind each character.
It's just an incredible amount of conversation, and the shorthand is you always want to be able to know. In the parlance that we use, it's like, what's the character's want? Meaning, in any given moment, at any given scene, like, what does that character want? And usually it's a couple things. Usually there's an emotional want, there's a physical want, there's a want in the scene, and it's about figuring what all those are. And I mean, look, none of it is brain surgery. So much of it is structure. Like, for example, I know that I'm going to need a character to they're going to need to arc through an episode. And so if they're starting sad, more often than not, they're going to end happy. If they're starting happy, more often than not, they're going to end sad. They're going to go from angry to calm or calm to angry. Like, it's almost binary, almost always, if you start breaking down where your characters are. And so once you figure out what are the 3 or 4 beats that get them from sad to happy or angry to calm, and once you figure out what those are, then you start to have a structure. Now you have a structure. And then you can start talking about, like, okay, well, what's my own psychology? How would I feel in this moment? That's where you start bringing all your history and personality into it, but the skeletons are always really clean, actually, usually. And then you start fleshing it out with all the idiosyncratic weirdness that are just us as people. And so we do that, and the reason I always say you have to do that before you even talk about the story is story beats are generally easy. I mean, not easy, nothing's easy, but it's like, if there's a car chase, or you jump off a building, or you run through this, or you kiss the person, or whatever, like, those are all reasonably easy beats, and in general, a dime a dozen. But finding those beats that tell you something about that character, those are rare, those are hard. And so if you know what you're trying to say about the character, you have a much better guidepost about what scene you need, rather than just like, well, then he smashes through the window. Well, why? Well, because it'd be cool. Like, that doesn't work. It has to tell me something about who that person is.
Hi, I'm Noelle. I was wondering what you learned from your time show running Supernatural that you were able to apply to your work on The Boys.
Thanks. Good question. So Supernatural, and there's less and less of us these days. Supernatural, we had to do 22 a year, and well, I was not the day-to-day showrunner after about 5.5, but it was 15 seasons, 327 episodes, which is a lot. 327 hours is a lot of hours. But so one, we had to keep people interested 22 times a year, not 8 times a year. And second, that's network television. That's based on ratings. And it's measuring who's watching every episode every week. And if people stop watching every week, you're going to get canceled. You're going to get canceled before the season's even over. It's a whole different world. And so you have to be entertaining, and I take real issue. It like offends me as my background as a network showrunner. Like, all the people who like are in streaming and like, what it really is a 10-hour movie. I'm like, shut up, like, F you, man. Like, 10-hour movie, like, it makes me furious, because like, I come from a background where you had to actually be entertaining. You weren't allowed to wait till episode 4 to have anything happen. And the fact that people go along with that blows my fucking mind. Like, it's boring. Like, you're allowed to say, like, that's boring. You're supposed to have stories being told. It's the entertainment business. It's supposed to be entertaining. So that is a real pet peeve of mine. So, and that I think is actually something in The Boys. Like if you watch The Boys, it'll always build to an episodic climax, always. And that climax will then lead to the next piece, and it'll keep stacking on top of each other, but every episode is an actual episode, and isn't just this long, slow, self-important piece of shit like like so many streaming shows are.
Hi, Axel. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Love the show.
Thanks.
I just want a quick question. If you got any, my friends and I always wonder if you get any celebrity blowback with the hilarious gags of celebrities.
Most everyone had a good sense of humor about it if they were talked about directly. Like an anecdote in season 3 was we went to Ashton Kutcher to be one of the guys who sings Imagine, like Gal Gadot's Imagine, and we were going after any celebrity who'd be willing to do it. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. And then we realized, like, I forget if it was 2 episodes earlier, I was like, we do have that line where they describe the Deep as if Ashton Kutcher fucked a clownfish. And we were like, oh, we have to tell him. Because he has to decide whether he wants to bail or not. And so Evan Goldberg, who's one of the producers, and knows Ashton Kutcher, called him and was like, so there's this line where it's like, we say that the Deep is you if you fucked a clownfish. And so if you want to pass on doing the video. And he could not have been cooler. He was like, I think that's hilarious. And this is the business we are in. And if you can't take, having some fun made of you, then you are in the wrong business, and do it. And he went up a couple clicks in my esteem after that.
Can we get a microphone here?
I love these mics. Wait, is someone going? Is it just me? Okay, sorry. I couldn't tell if someone else was going. Quick question. It was. Oh, should I shut up? I can shut up.
No, it's okay. No, you're good. Go ahead.
Sorry. It was like a little press moment before season 3 happened that they said that you used all of your fake blood by episode 3 or something. Should we expect the same for season 4?
There's definitely some blood. I don't know. I mean, it is true that in season 3, the budget of blood we were done by the 3rd episode. The blood but you can just order more. It's just corn syrup. It's just red corn syrup. It's pretty easy to get. I don't know. I'll have to do an accounting of what the blood is. I can tell you that it's terrible stuff. It's sticky and sweet, and it's like sugar paste, sugar syrup. So when the actors are outside doing a big blood gag, bees start swarming because it's sugar. It's all sugar. So when we put them inside that whale in season 2, that might as well have been a beehive of the amount of bees that are drawn in by the sugar. So the actors hate the blood, hate it, but they know the job that they're on, unfortunately. So.
Hi, my name is Lexi. Thank you so much for being here. I was wondering what your favorite or funniest memory has been with working with Chase Crawford. He was my celebrity crush growing up. So, yeah.
I would say, first of all, he's the nicest guy and the best sport and really just such a great guy to work with. On top of everything else, these actors are all really good people, which is rare, frankly. More just his ability, the shit we throw at him and his ability to just, because he wasn't really a comedy actor heading into this, and how game he is to you know, sing a duet with his own gills and have sex with an octopus and all the stuff that he's doing, and he just dives in and is okay. So it reminds me, he did call when he read the like sex with an octopus script. He's like, I don't know, man. This could be this might be like, I don't know, like is it gonna hurt my career? And I was like, probably, yeah. No, so what, you have to be very, very sensitive to actors' concerns, and it's legit. So he and I sat down and we walked through the shots are going to be, and here's why it's going to be funny, and he was totally awesome with it and hilarious. But yeah, so that's my Chase Crawford anecdote, him having sex with an octopus, I guess.
Am I next? Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm sorry. My name is Isabel. I just wanted to ask real quick what was like working with Jim Beaver both on Supernatural and on The Boys.
Jim's the best. He's so, one, he's an amazing actor, but two, he's just such a smart, brilliant, funny, sweet man. Character, I have like you'll see when you get out, if you get out into the business, like the best actors, not just best like most talented, but just the people I just love, I have such affection for, are the character actors. Like there's a whole world of people out there that are just, they're not movie stars per se, but they're working, and they're working over the years again and again and again, and they have such interesting, nuanced and varied performances, and they're always so down to earth because they don't get to be like shoved into the spotlight, which can be really heady for people and mess them up sometimes. So they're just like salt of the earth. There's the salt of the earth generation of actors that are absolutely delightful to hang out with because they're just so talented and have been through the trenches. So Jim is one of those.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks. Thank you. This was fun. Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Watch The Boys on Amazon.
Exactly. I have to thank you for Supernatural. My son is a huge fan of Supernatural.
Oh, that's nice. Tell him thanks.
And he had back surgery one summer in between his between his freshman and sophomore year, and all he could do was watch television. And he's just like Supernatural.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
Because there's so much of it, and he loved it so much.